I'm going to talk about Yokai Monsters Collection, which is from Arrow. This has been out for a while, but because I did the Imagine series recently, I wanted to kind of separate these because they're kind of similar type of films. So I took a break from them and I actually watched the Showbrother stuff, and then I come back to Yokai Monsters. Just to spread it out. I guess it's easier when you can spread out films so you're not watching the same type of film all the time, so you can appreciate them more rather than saying, oh, they're just like that and stuff, you know. It's just one of those things you can do to actually make your viewing experience better, really. So this Yokai Monsters set has 4 films, it's 100 monsters, it's Spook Warfare, it has Along with Ghosts, and it has a Greek Yokai War. So 3 films from the 60s and 1 film from the 2000s. So basically, yokai is a name for monsters in Japan. There's a good documentary on 100 Monsters disc, which goes through the history of the yokai, which means there were basically a lot of different monsters from different tales over the centuries that, you know, they're basically folk tales from Japan, the way every other country's folk tales. They ended up being combined by an artist in the 1930s into like one kind of mythology, because they've been basically purged from Japanese society because they were fantastical, like in an earlier period, and he's the one who brought them back. So instead of being individual monsters from individual tales, it became much more like a collection of monsters. So basically, the yokai is the Japanese mythology, but now put into one overarching mythology, which is now referenced a lot. I mean, it's a thing that influenced Pokemon. Yokai influenced Pokemon. So a lot of the big resurgence of Pokemon and video games and a lot of the Japanese art all come from the yokai. Even though they do their own thing now and they don't always reference the actual yokai. But this is where it started. This was the base of the current Japanese boom. So you get a nice booklet and poster. Here you get a poster. You get a booklet which has lots of writing and pictures. I'm trying to find some pictures. Here we go. Your pictures. You have this lovely little poster thing. But you also have another one with no explanations, just seeing the images themselves. So, and you get the films. And there's one box set, you get the Yokai Monsters, which is just the collection of the 3 films from the 60s. Were made over 2 years, basically. 100 Monsters, Spook Warfare, and Along with Ghosts. So I'm getting this wrong way around. So you have that. And you get the Greek Yokai War. So as you can see, they did a lot with these to make them look gorgeous. The actual artwork on them is terrific. I'll show you the extended artwork in the back of this one too. See, they put a lot of care into these. They really have put a lot of effort. It's similar to the Die Imagine one, where they really, and the Gamera stuff, where they really put tons of care into creating these box sets, so they're basically artworks. Arrow is really good at Japanese, like, old monsters, old films. They're terrific at actually presenting them in a way that looks into where they came from. So they actually put the care in. So that's why I'm happy to buy these kind of films from Arrow, because they seem passionate about it. This seems to be a kind of passion project. They also do a lot of obscure Japanese films from the past. They tend to be like the best distributor outside of Third Windows. The Third Windows is more modern Japanese releases or Asian releases. Arrow tends to be the more historical ones. and they really seem to love those old ones. So that's the actual box set. I'm going to quite a while about the actual box set before even talking about the films. So all the films in this box set are terrific. I mean, the strongest ones I find are the ones that deal with humans dealing with yokai rather than the yokai-centric ones. So 100 Monsters along with Ghosts are my favourites. But Spook Warfare and the Greek Yokai War are also terrific. But I prefer the other two, really. But it's just I find the ones with human protagonists dealing with yokai tend to have more of a stronger story. It's more characters you can identify with. It just feels more interesting. And they are taking, those two stories, they're taking like traditional crime stories you get in like samurai films, but they're doing interesting things with them, so it's not just black and white situations. They've actually had some nuance to certain things, so it works out really well, especially in Along with Ghosts, which is maybe my favourite of the whole box set. But in 100 Monsters are kind of quite, they're very good. So 100 Monsters I'll start with. 100 Monsters is a story about this corrupt businessman who's basically bribing people further up to get hold of a tenement building which he wants to turn into something that, you know, can be used to make a lot of money because it's the land he wants. He thinks it could be easily exploited to make a fortune, really. But he needs to rid of these tenement people so he can destroy everything, destroy their temple, destroy their tenement buildings, and rebuild what he wants in this land. So it's a land rights story. Of course, the temple is for the yokai, but even though they don't know what it is, it's just these old religious things that the people still pray to, but the new people have no time for. Apart from hearing the stories, they don't really care about anything beyond the stories. They just view them as stories. The actual believers view the stories as a curse. So basically, if you told the stories and don't take the proper precautions, you'll be cursed and the yokai will come and get you. So the yokai change a lot during these stories and these films because their use in each story is different, individual to what that story is. So it's not consistent because there's a bunch of different monsters and each have their own different abilities. So certain monsters are good for certain things. So what monsters are used in certain films depend on what the monsters are. So in the first one, in the midst of the actual land rights thing and all the betrayals of this guy who's very corrupt and will cheat anybody to get his way. You've got these stories been told to people all about the yokai and the different monsters from the past, the different curses and how people haven't, taken them seriously and why the curses destroy them ultimately. So you have a mix between an anthology film and an actual drama, and it moves back and forward beautifully because the short stories within the main story tell you the curses that tell you this is going to pay off. So it's not just a random story. Plus they're creepy. They're not like modern horror stories, but they're much more like old-fashioned fantasy, dark fantasy stories. But they work wonderfully. They've got a wonderful atmosphere to them. For British people, I would say they're kind of like Hammer horror in a sense that you're not going to be terrified by them, but you're going to enjoy the atmosphere of them. That's what the yokai have. They're just this great atmosphere, this old school atmosphere that you're going to have a good time with. So there's that. But there's also the drama story of this greedy guy, his mentally handicapped son, who can see yokai, but they do him no harm because they can see he's an innocent. But they mean harm to other people who are greedy and who are out to kill these people. Because people are getting killed. It's not just they're conning them. People anytime that the people they're trying to con actually get a heads up to try and help themselves, they get killed. So there's a nice sense of brutality in this film, in the sense that it's not going to be easy for the people to survive. So it's wonderfully dark, and it's in a sense that it's going to take a lot of effort to actually win. And eventually, by the end of the film, the villains are upset the yokai so much the yokai come for them. So the first half of the movie, you're getting all these tales of yokai, but it doesn't affect your villains. The second half, the yokai come for them, and they really come for them. They really mess them about. They have people lose their faces because they become blank faces, which is the creepiest part of the film. You have this wonderful monster with this woman whose neck extends and she's the neck's like a snake. It's wonderful. And it's just like wonderful, fantastical imagination. If you've seen Nightbreed, the Clive Barker story, you get a feeling that he loves these kind of films. So I have a feeling he's seen these films when he was a kid or as a teenager or something like that they influenced him, because there's a really cool crossover. But the 100 Monsters is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm trying to remember all the titles because the titles they're basically the yokai stories ultimately. So Spook Warfare is the second one, and it's the Monsters vs Monsters film where the humans are just basically bystanders. This is the one I like least out of the four, I think. Even though it's meant to be the strongest one, I found it the weakest one. Not because it was bad, it was good. It's just that the idea of Monsters vs Monsters, ultimately I think we needed, they did have human people in there, but the characters were a bit weak compared to the rest of compared to the monsters. So you never had a human identifiable figure. Basically, this monster is released during a archaeological dig, a Babylonian dig. He travels to Japan and basically fights this magistrate who oversees this one area. The magistrate losing is possessed by this demon. The demon then possesses other people, so there's multiple versions of him in different bodies. And people are starting to see something's going wrong here. This is weird. This is off. And the yokai, one of the yokai who's living just in the garden, and this kind of frog yokai sees it's a monster. It's not a possessed person. It's a possessed person. The person behind it is a monster, and he's an old school monster who means ill will, who sees other newer religions as blasphemy, and he's just wrong. So he has to go and tell his people that there's a problem. At first they don't believe him, obviously, but then they believe him, and it's them fighting this monster who's possessing the other people. They initially think they've defeated him, but it turns out he escaped another body, and they have to have a full-on fight, figure out how to actually defeat him. Not just kill him, because once they kill him, he can move to another body. So what they have to do is actually find a way to defeat the central monster rather than just the monsters jumping from body to body. It's a really imaginative tale, but as I said, the problem for me is you've got a lot of monsters, but you don't have identify a human figure that's actually interesting. So you're interested in the monsters, that's cool, but the monsters themselves are background players by definition. They are supporting characters. None of them jump up as a central character, so you have a lot of... That's what feels more anthology-like, even though it's got the strongest central story. But there's no human touch to it. So it becomes more of a freak show than anything. It's more about the monsters and having fun with the monsters, enjoying their strangeness, enjoying the villains and what they're up to, but you're not as invested. I mean, in 100 Monsters, I was invested in the tenement dwellers as they're getting beaten down, as they're getting defeated one by one, as they're losing family members to these vicious, greedy people that are just out to get them. Either the rich people against the poor people, and it's much more identifiable. This one's a lot less of that, even though it's more fantastical and more imaginative, and it's more expanded. I don't think it's successful. At least for me. I like monsters, but for me the human central characters weren't as strong. Then we go to Along with Ghosts. Along with Ghost is really good. It's probably the most traditional film that relies less on monsters than any other ones. Because for the first like half the film, you have monsters, but on the background, these are more ghostly yokai in this one. It's tied to the other two by the idea of it's a yokai, but these are different monsters, they're basically ghosts. And what's happening is this corrupt gang boss has killed his enemy, who has found that he's cheating everybody. So they kill him. There's a witness, this little girl and her grandpa. The grandpa gets killed and the little girl has to go on the run and go to this town and find her father. She runs into this basically gangster, Yakuza Ronin guy. All these films are set in the past, and he's like watched the bad guy who's actually just been killed, and he doesn't know there's an actual war going on. He just thinks everybody's dealing with each other, but no one's fighting or anything. So it's slowly he gets the idea that his side's being betrayed and they're out to kill him, and he has to protect his girl, and he has to save her. So he's a decent sort. I mean, he lives in the real world, but he's a decent sort. So that's what this film actually has, is a lot of people who are compromised by their own deeds, by the society around them. It's based on a Western in Japanese form with monsters. I mean, if you love High Plains Drifter, you're going to love this one. The most I think of is High Plains Drifter when I was watching it. Because it's just ghostly, and there's revenge, and there's how do you do good in such a hellish environment. But it's these people that come together. There's a teenage boy who protects a little girl who's about 7 as well. There's a couple of vagabonds in the town who help them too. Just people who don't have to help, actually doing the best they can in the circumstances that is not good for them, but they're still trying to help. So you get to see the good side of humanity from these people's actions. I mean, none of these people are pure, but they've actually see, wait a minute, this is wrong. We have to help. We have to deal with this. And as the villains, plus they know the different curses in the local area, so they know what to avoid. And slowly but surely, the villains start to have to deal with the yokai and have to deal with the cursed lands and wandering onto these lands and getting all these weird, scary sequences, or dark fantasy sequences, really. They're very enjoyable and they're very atmospheric, of the gangsters getting haunted by the yokai and getting messed about. It all leads to a terrific finale where she finds her father, who's not who she thinks he is. And there's a wonderful thing about redemption of the father and dealing with your own flaws and dealing with your mistakes from unexpected sources, and how some people can only go so far, can only push so far before they find a decency within. So it's actually a very... It's one of those films that it takes place in a very cynical world, but people involved who fight back sort of bring back humanity to the area. So it's a traditional romantic view of the world, but it works. It really works. The characters are enjoyable, the yokai are atmospheric, but are kept off until they're needed. The villains you hate. So this is just a down the line, terrifically made film that knows what it's about and sticks to the point and doesn't get sidetracked in any way. So it knows what it's about. Plus, the little girl is adorable, so you're always hoping she survives. This is how you do a child character well. They're not trying to make her... They're not forcing her to be adorable to you. She's just adorable because she's innocent and she doesn't know any better, and they're not over-egging it. And the people around her are helping her because of her decency. But they're not forcing you to think she's adorable. They're just saying, look, this is a character. So this is a wonderful film. Along with Ghost, it's just wonderful. As I said before, it might be my favourite of the three, but 100 Monsters is also very strong. Now we go to the Takashi Miike film, the Greek Yokai War. Now this is the one that through Man v Film, Graham Man v Film, because it is very different from the other ones, and it is much more aggressive and very Takashi Miike in your face. So if you're watching these in a box set, this one will just it's completely different. It's different screen ratio. The first three are in 235:1, and this one's in 185:1. The style's different. It's very Miike, and it's not connected anyway. It's set in a modern world with the monsters in the background. But once I get used to the idea that it's not the same thing, because I had enough warnings from different people like Graham that it was very different. So I know it's very different. And it's, I mean, the thing I like about it is it's still a child's film. You know, that's explicit make it a children's film with monsters. Like, the actual older films are probably more grown up than this one is, but the older films are still made for a general audience. This one is specifically a children's film. Basically, it's a young kid who, basically into his teenage, is probably 10 or something like that. And he's smart, but he's dealing with the fact that his parents have divorced, and he's having trouble fitting in with the new school. He doesn't understand the local customs. He wins this thing to be the spirit rider or friend rider or something. That's just a yearly thing that you're bestowed this thing, and no one takes it very seriously. It turns out it actually is based on old myths of yokai. And suddenly, this evil yokai god who was once a human is trying to destroy the world out of revenge for how horrible the world has been. And basically, this kid has to join the yokai and lead them into battle to fight this evil person who's also using this other yokai who's turned against the people. And it's basically a kid's film because he's talked about how this is a summer adventure and we first learned to lie. And he's watching the kid through this one summer when he's in summer holiday fighting with the yokai against these villains, against these demons. So it starts off in a small town, goes into the mountains as he enters this world, sees all these yokai all around him and all these different monsters, and it ends up in Tokyo, and Tokyo is attacked for things people don't understand, and essentially he helps defeat them. Because he's young enough to be innocent, he can see yokai, because apparently when you get older you can't see yokai anymore because your imagination is too focused in the real world, and you just lose that ability. So it's about growing up and also becoming a hero in your story and not being beaten down. So it's a wonderful children's film. It really is. I think you should as kids, they love it because there's monsters, there's action. The kid's a hero, but the kid's not annoying. The kid's a genuine kid. It's sort of like kind of along with Ghost, where you like the kid who's at the centre of the story because the kid is decent. He's just a decent kid. He's just trying to survive, and because it's Miike, it's more outlandish as it goes on. He loves the monsters. He loves having all these ridiculous fights. He embraces the ridiculousness of all this stuff. How ridiculous some of these monsters can be. How silly some of it is. He uses the fact he doesn't have tons of money and actually just doesn't even try and suggest that this is realism. This is fantasy. It's knowingly ridiculous. There's a lot of humour in it. But as an adult, you can enjoy it, and as a child, you probably love it. You know, I feel Miike saw a lot of Adam West's Batman in this, when he was growing up, and assumed that this was just a normal way of doing a kid's film. Like, all his kids' films all have this kind of weird outlandish thing. It's probably some part of it's Japanese, but also it feels like he doesn't care about being silly. And he seems to understand that there's a way to do things and not be serious, but still be serious within the story to a degree to keep you interested. So, it's wonderful. Great Yokai War is wonderful, but you have to get into the mood of it. And it does have an ending which is actually bittersweet, because it points out this kid's going to forget the yokai after the great adventure because he's going to grow up. The white lie he has to tell somebody is his first step into adulthood, which leads to him forgetting the yokai or not being able to see them anymore. So It's a wonderful film. It really is wonderful. But it's not my favourite. The thing is, this film's so good, but the other films are even better. And the strongest of those films, I just think, are, 100 Monsters and Along with Ghosts. But the box set's great. All 4 films are terrific. You have a great time with these films if you like monsters. So I can't recommend this box set enough. It is wonderful. It's just so wonderful. The monsters are terrific. The stories are terrific. The atmosphere is terrific. There's good extras. But basically the strength is this film is the films. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope it's made you want to see these films. And I'll see you later. Bye for now.